Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Healing Feminine Shame podcast with me, Devin of InnerSpark. And today we are diving into how and why to align with your own nature. What that means, why it's important, and how we do that. And we do that by ditching our own individual shame bundles. So it's going to be a juicy, meaty episode. Strap in and let's get into it. All right. So let's begin with this premise that life wants to live. Right? The essence of life is to live. Plants want to blossom and flower and bloom, and you are no different. You are nature, and nature is you, and you have your own unique individual nature. And that own unique individual nature is your drive. It is your inner spark. It's your drive to grow and to blossom. So life wants to live and bloom, and so do you. So does your fullest potential. You can think of this as your true self, your high self, your potential. It's happening. Every single step along your path, your life, has been trying to walk you towards that. And it's been as easeful or as challenging as we've allowed it to be. Now, I'm not talking about external circumstances here. I'm not getting into issues like that or, anything of the sort. I'm talking about our relationship with ourselves and our definitions of ourselves and what we believe is possible for ourselves that allows us to blossom or that stifles us. So let's just start right there with let's all agree, right? Life wants to live and blossom. And so do you as a reflection of nature and as a being with their own nature. So what holds us back then? What's weighing us down? There was this image that came to me as I was putting this together of, we're all these very unique, beautiful flowers that are growing up through the soil, through the waters, where if you're a lotus, maybe if you're a dandelion, a daffodil, whatever you are, you're growing up towards the sun. And so that's going to happen, right? That's like the nature of the flower. That's your own nature as well. And we have these shame bundles. And the image that came to me was this kind of ball and chain. This thing that's just weighing us down and pulling us down. But we're still growing, right? It's still happening. It's just there's a lot of resistance. It's like resistance training to the max, yeah? Just trying to grow up in this being pulled down and pulled back. So what is a shame bundle, you ask? You're like, that sounds kind of cute. It's not, right? We have little bundles of joy, little babies, bundles of blankets on the couch. This is not like that. This is not a fun, cozy bundle. A shame bundle is a bundle of nonsense that we've adopted as our own personal gospel for our lives. And then we check ourselves against that. So the shame bundle provides us with our definitions of ourselves, our guidelines for how a person like us should conduct ourselves, for what's possible for us and for our lives, and so forth. So it is a collection of catalogued life experiences and conclusions that we have drawn, guidelines, definitions, etc., that we are constantly measuring ourselves and checking ourselves against. So it's so deeply ingrained in our psyches that it's become so much a part of us as breathing. So it's kind of hard to recognize and decouple ourselves from this this bundle of nonsense, this bundle of untruths. So we check ourselves against it. It's a very instantaneous, quick occurrence. So we might even just have an idea. It's not even, hasn't even come into action yet. We might have an idea for a goal or a dream or something that we wish to try or to do. And if it's not in accordance with what the shame bundle has decided is possible for our lives, we're going to quickly check ourselves and squash that. However, if it is something that is so inherent and natural and part of our own essence and nature and a truly divine drive from within, it needs to happen, right? Your nature as the daffodil or the rose or whatever, if you're following along with my flower metaphor still, is to become that, is to grow into that. So the shame bundle is going to try really hard, but we're going to make ourselves very uncomfortable very quickly and have a lot of other consequences by stifling that, trying to stifle that growth. So that's the paradox. The shame bundle will try to stifle, but it can't stop it entirely. And so that breeds so much dis-ease because it's unavoidable, the growth and becoming who you are meant to be. And again, we can make it as challenging or as easeful as we desire. The process of becoming, of fully blossoming, is easier when we stay on our path and become aware of this ball and chain. So again, that power and that gift of awareness. And so back to what this has to do with nature and really viewing nature as a teacher is recognizing that, again, life wants to bloom. It wants to blossom. And it's happening. Especially right now as I'm recording, it's springtime in the Northern Hemisphere. And so things are doing this beautiful surrendered growth process where it's just happening. They're not fighting it. They're not resisting it. That's unnatural. That is very unnatural. And so this gets into this notion of feminine shame and previous episodes when I've talked about natural versus normal, is nowadays it's very normal for us to do very unnatural things and then feel that shame arise when we choose to go against what's normal to embrace what's natural. So growing is natural. Allowing ourselves to blossom is natural. Doing so with this shame bundle and this weight is unnatural. So having our own flows and our own rhythms is so vital, so necessary. We are allowed to be different and to flow and to have our own path and our own rhythm. And so really honoring that path is how we drop this shame bundle and how we heal feminine shame. Coming into what's natural for us, coming into what is so innate to us that it must happen, that is as natural as breathing, as natural as the flowers blooming during springtime. We must realize that the source of so much of our suffering is this misalignment and incongruence and refusal to participate in the growth process. So it looks like this, right? We have this idea, this drive. We check it against the shame bundle. The shame bundle says, nope, nuh-uh, that's not for you. That doesn't fit into the definition of who you are, the guidelines for how a person like you should conduct themselves, etc. And so we avoid, right? And that's what feminine shame is all about. That's what feminine shame is all about. So we must realize that the contents of our shame bundle aren't actually ours. They were given to us by our family, they were given to us by society, they were created by our younger selves who were trying to make sense of the world. And this is especially the case if you went through a lot of early life difficulty, challenges, and traumas. You know, little people dealing with really big things are going to draw some very interesting conclusions that maybe served them at the time and were helpful at the time. But now, as an adult, 45-year-old with a 6-year-old running your life, it's probably not going very well, right? There's a lot of this conflict, this grinding within, because it's like this constant fight between your innate nature and what you want and desire and who you're growing into, who you are meant to grow into, and what you want out of life, with this shame bundle and all of the guidelines therein. So there's this fight constantly. And we have ourselves so convinced that we need this shame bundle, right? That it's like, it's right, and it's going to keep us safe. And perhaps for many of us, the awareness of its existence is still not there. So the first step is to really just become aware and catch ourselves when this is happening, and then really become clear on why I believe these things. What purpose did they once serve? And how can I now let them go? What stories am I telling myself about myself and what's possible for my life? And beginning to unravel this turmoil and this conflict. So I just want to briefly share 4 ways that we can recognize how the shame bundle is running the show, and some ways to kind of combat that. So number 1 is symptoms in the body and mind are signs of this grinding between the shame bundle and our nature. And so symptoms are messengers. They arise when there's an opportunity to come into greater harmony with ourselves, with nature, as a great external entity, and also with our own nature. So what sorts of physical, emotional, mental challenges do you come up against regularly? This can be things like anxiety, hormonal imbalances, digestive discomfort, stiffness in the body, poor posture, anger, resentment, confusion, overwhelm. These are some really good, common key signals. And so use these as gateways back into your true nature, your true self. You can do this with things like communicating with the symptoms, imagining the exact opposite of the symptom and how that would feel or look. Imagining how it would feel to be a person who doesn't have these symptoms. So a common thing with the shame bundle is like I said, these guidelines for ourselves and how a person like us should be. And so we can inquire about the opposite of that. So, okay, how would a person without these symptoms be? What kind of person doesn't have this in their lives? And notice if there is any type of resistance to being that kind of person, and what the shame bundle has to say about that, what the stories are for there. Number 2 is looking at the things that you come up against continually. So these kind of continual challenges, or we can call it the same shit different day phenomenon, right? So when we refuse to release the shame bundle and live from its dictatorship, we're not in alignment with ourselves. So we're not in alignment with our needs and our boundaries, and we're going to come up against the same challenges repeatedly. So continually attracting the same type of relationship, even though it's harmful and draining. Continually making self-harming choices and feeling like we can't do things differently. So not being able to show up for ourselves regularly, continually saying you're going to start that meditation practice, or you're going to move your body more or clean up your diet, and then still feeling like you can't make it happen. These are other ways that this incongruency shows up, for sure. And so again, we inquire. We get real with ourselves. We go inside. We ask. We listen. We ask what the real need is and how it could be met in a different way. Why it's so hard to change a particular pattern. What is it doing for us? And what is a more supportive way to go about this? And the third one is to really work on noticing and then befriending all of your parts. All of your parts. And we can do this again through aligning with nature's wisdom and coming into relationship with those 8 cosmic archetypes that are represented on InnerSpark's wheel as they are inspired and guided by the literal 8 seasons that the earth experiences. So we have these 8 characters that are living within us that make up our high council, our wisdom guides, and they're available to us at all times, no matter what season it is. But it can be a very beautiful practice of really coming into alignment and observation of Earth seasons to kind of have that tangible experience of the particular archetype that's represented by that season. So InnerSpark has a whole wheel and a whole series of teachings and different things about that you can check out on the website innerspark.life, as well as other podcast episodes. And so part of the programming of feminine shame is that we must remain constant, right? We have to be the same all the time. We're not allowed to flow and to be the spirally beings that we are, to have emotions, to age, to do these things, right? And so by really coming into alignment with nature and the seasons and these archetypes, it's like our giant permission slip of oh my gosh, yes, if the greatest force that we know, right, the earth, is allowed to have these different phases and stages and seasons, then I am too. I am totally allowed to do that. And when we're caught in the trap of thinking that we must be one way, as dictated by that shame bundle as our self-definition, we create a lot of tension within us because that's unnatural and impossible. Newsflash, hate to break it to you. All right. So the last and final that I am sharing with you today. This is just the last and final that I'm sharing today, not the last and final way that this shows up for us. So noticing, and again, this is about connecting with our nature through nature, because we are of nature. It's all one and the same. Noticing seasonal shifts and what is happening for you in each of them. So each season and each archetype offers specific invitations and guidance, especially during their corresponding season on Earth. Because like I said, it's kind of that tangible entry point. We're having this tangible experience of, for example, right now, like I said, it is spring. So it's this tangible experience of the initiate archetype on InnerSpark's wheel. Even though this part of me is here all the time, even if it's winter, it's really beautiful to have these physical reminders, to see the flowers blooming, to see the baby animals, to see the tender green leaves, to feel the energy pick up as the sun is going to reach its zenith point at solstice. So we have these tangible experiences of these subtle energies. And so when we use the seasons tangibly to learn more about our nature, when we use nature to learn more about our nature and drop the shame bundle, people, healing feminine shame, we can notice in particular which seasons we don't like. Well, what season do you not like? Could be whatever reason. What arises for you physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually? And really just begin to dig deeper. And I hope you're noticing a common thread through all of these tips that I'm sharing is to dive deeper into yourself. That's where all of your answers are. That's where all of your healing is. There's nothing and no one outside. Okay? I don't have your answers. I can just offer guidance and observations and support. So, looking at what seasons you don't like, what seasons bring up challenge, and investigating, getting a little deeper. And so as an example, I wanted to share this question I was recently asked about somebody's transition into spring. So this is their experience as the spring transition is taking place. And so she said, Devin, I've noticed that during the first quarter of the year, I tend to not feel well. Not 100%. And it usually comes on around now. So this is like a recurring springtime thing for this person. I've also noticed other people experiencing the same thing in different ways. Some people get angry at this time of year. It's strange to me and I'm just noticing it. I'm not sick, but I feel achy, almost like I am thawing from winter and it hurts. So this is just such a beautiful observation and a beautiful question, and it makes so much sense. Everything about it just makes so much sense. And so my answer to this person was, thank you for reaching out to me and sharing your experiences, because I always appreciate that. I love what you said. I am thawing from winter and it hurts. Like, yes. It sounds like growing pains on an energetic level that are showing up in the body. Spring asks us to blossom in new and different ways, and this can bring up resistance, fear, anxiety, and uncertainty. And this can show up as aches, not feeling well, anger, tiredness, etc. Perhaps there's something you're wanting to venture into, try, learn, walk away from, stop doing. I invite you to think about that, and I hope that it resonates. So, yes, so much here. I could just make a whole episode about this. And I did actually, in the Initiate, De-Shaming the Initiate podcast, that was particularly relating to spring. But every single season and archetype is going to bring up its own stuff. And so as we hold on to our shame bundles that like things to be a certain way that they've decided is the right way, that they've decided is the way that will keep us safe, we are going to inevitably be in a state of resistance when things change. Because we have to check ourselves against this rigid definition of life and of ourselves. Yeah, just like for anybody who's listening to the audio and didn't see the video, that was me just gagging. Like, that's unnatural, unsupportive way of living. So noticing what comes up and the subtle, energetic, nuanced invitations therein. Noticing what is there. And again, on the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual levels, because that can tell you a lot about the shame bundle and its contents and its guidelines. And more importantly than that, tell you what is needed to bring wholeness. So we're not diving into these things to just like stay in the muck and like be uncomfortable. It's through the muck and the discomfort and through the shame that we're going to find the liberation on the other side, that we're going to find the wholeness that we really want and that we deserve. And that is like more than possible because it's our freaking birthright, right? We're here to blossom into our truest nature. All right. So I want to just leave you with a few little prompts you can take with you into your journal. What parts of you have always been growing or blooming despite the shame bundle, despite the guidelines and the definitions and the ways of holding yourself back? What parts of you have always been growing and blooming? We can often lose sight of how far we have come. So just looking back at yourself 5 years ago, 3 years ago even, 10 years ago, looking at all that you have accomplished, overcome, experienced, and how you were doing that even with this shame bundle. And we all have it to some degree. Some of us, it is a heavier weight than others. Some of us, like I said, aren't even aware because it's just so ingrained into us, like breathing. We don't really know what it's like without it. But we all have it. And so despite having that, you have still done these things. And so then asking yourself, how can these parts that are supporting me blossoming into my true nature be allowed to bloom with more ease and space? Another way of thinking about it is like, what parts of the shame bundle can be unpacked and just released, kicked to the curb? And then just getting really curious and real about what does your shame bundle say? So my shame bundle says, believes, thinks, feels, and just see what comes up for you there. What definitions about myself do I hold? What do I think is possible for a person like me? Yeah. Really just inviting us all to live from our inner spark, our nature, with nature, supported by our nature, and to release all attempts to somehow control and stifle that nature within us and around us. Okay? Oh, so good. Thank you for tuning in. I invite you to come hang out with me in the Healing Feminine Shame Facebook group and to head over to InnerSpark.life to explore many resources and articles and all the goodness there waiting for you. I will see you next time. And be sure to share this with somebody that you think can benefit. I am so passionate about us all truly recognizing and unraveling this legacy of feminine shame living within each of us, regardless of gender and anatomy. It doesn't care. It's here. So let's come together, do the damn thing, and blossom into who we are already blossoming into. All right? See you next time.